Good evening again and welcome. For those of you just joining, my name is Katie Banzer-Whittle and I am Regional Director for Skinner Inc., one of the nation's leading auction houses. Skinner holds over 60 auctions a year, both live and online, in categories ranging from fine and decorative arts, jewelry, wine and spirits, modern design, Americana, and many others. We also provide appraisal services. Headquartered in Massachusetts, we have offices in Florida, Maine, and White Plains, New York, where I oversee the needs of clients in Westchester and Fairfield counties, as well as New Jersey, Manhattan, and all 5 boroughs. Thank you all for joining us for Skinner's presentation, Curated Sales at Skinner. A few housekeeping notes before we begin. On your Zoom screen, you will see some controls. There is a green bar at the top center of the screen to control display options, and a black band along the lower part of the screen will display audio settings and the Q&A graphics. Click on it to open a window where you can type a question for our speaker. We look forward to a lively question and answer session at the conclusion of our Zoominar. Skinner is delighted to partner with the Wilton Historical Society for this season's Gentlemen's Auction, open for bidding starting today, May 25th through June 3rd. Interior designers Prudence Bailey, Christina, Roughan, and Phillip have lent their eye to curate a portion of this bespoke auction, fashioned to coincide with Wilton Historical Society's Object of Desire annual fundraiser. Proceeds from these hand-picked lots will benefit education programs. To speak more about the sale and the concept of curated auction, I am pleased to introduce Skinner's Deputy Director of American Furniture and Decorative Arts and Head of the Gentleman Auction, Chris Barber. An avid supporter of the arts, Chris joined Skinner in 2004 and has overseen the Gentleman's Auction for the past 6 years. He is a member of the Museum Council at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, and some of you may recognize him as an appraiser on Antiques Roadshow. Chris, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Katie. First of all, I'd like to say how pleased I am to be a part of this event. Pleased that we've been able to fashion this partnership. I do wish we could all be together having cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. Alas, not this year. But the flexibility of Zoominar is not lost on me today. I was planning on doing this talk from the office. But here I am in Bloomington, Illinois, giving you a talk from my hotel room, where I'm headed out from after we're done here. So apologies if I seem a little bleary-eyed, but I'm glad to be with you in any case. So we've been exploring with the format of curated sales for a few years now, primarily with the gentleman's sale as our primary outlet for it. I'll talk to you a little bit about what they are, why we do them, and how we do them. And like Katie said, I hope that this can inspire some discussion after the fact. Make sure you submit your any questions you have coming up. If there are any that need to be answered in real time, I'm happy to do that. But we can also gather them for the end, and hope they again inspire some discussion. So today we're really going to be talking about, it's going to be an overview of these curated auctions, what sets one apart, why we've found that they are a good idea, how they can be a good idea, how they come together from a logistical and collaborative effort, and what they can look like, and perhaps a little bit about what they might look like in the future. First and foremost, what sets a curated sale apart? We're drawing a distinction between a curated sale and what we would call a traditional sale, or at least for this talk, what I've termed a traditional sale. A traditional sale being a single category of sale that Skinner has been associated with over the years: jewelry sales, American furniture and decorative arts sales, European furniture and decorative arts with fine silver, ceramics, the sorts of things, the sorts of sales that have a very let's say predictable group of things that might be in them. So if American Furniture and Decorative Arts sale has American Furniture and Decorative Arts in it, relatively easy to make the distinction. Of course, in the 20th Century Design Department down there in Nakashima Bench, all of these are past sales. And again, they are to be set distinctly from a gentleman's sale. More of what sets a curated sale apart, at least as far as I'm concerned. As Katie said, I've been building this gentleman's sale department for about 6 years now. So we've probably put 10 or 12 sales together. And most of the specifics I'll talk about today have to do with gentleman's sale. Sorry, it's what my specifics and my experience lead me to talk about today. But a lot of the generalities that I talk about can certainly be applied to other curated sales that we might put forth in the future. Generally speaking, we're talking about a sale that is not in one category, but a sale that might appeal to a person, a variety of people, and that has more of a feel than it does a time period or a place of origin or even a category as clearly defined as, say, musical instruments or ethnographic art, or very specifically paintings and prints. I include this slide here. We did decide for the gentleman's sale specifically, this one that I've been building for 5 or 6 years now, to make sure we keep them small. A smaller and digestible sale seems to be helpful. Frankly, it helps to be able to curate a smaller quote unquote exhibition. It's a little bit easier to make things agree with each other. We've sort of arrived at 125 to 175 lots. The current sale that we've got opening for bidding today has 127. So there we are, right in the target area. Easy enough to browse through quickly over a cappuccino, and I show a cappuccino, an espresso machine that we sold in our most recent sale, and I include it only to make the comment about being able to browse through the sale while you're drinking a cappuccino, but also because it is a distinct example of something that I've noticed with the gentleman's sale, where sometimes an item might bring more than its retail price, simply because the urgency of a sale, the urgency of having it in an auction, actually causes people to bid on it. This particular Olympia Cremina espresso machine is only available at one retail store in America, and it's in Brooklyn. Of course it is, and brought about $1,000 more than it would if you'd ordered it specially from Switzerland. So I find that pretty interesting. Anyway, small sidebar there. My favorite thing that people can say about a gentleman's sale and a curated sale by extension is that there's always something. In looking through a sale full of somebody's curated taste, there always seems to be something to bid on. More of what sets a curated sale apart, especially with regard to the gentleman's sale, tends to be retail aiming. That is to say, items are ready to display, in ready to use condition. They don't need a lot of restoration. They don't need a lot of cleaning. If they're used, they're gently used, in approachable price points. And I made the note here that we have a tendency to do well with blue chip names. In this case, Tiffany, that's the Brooklyn Bridge money clip, a Rolex watch, Gucci loafers that I think were probably worn one time before we sold them for about $1,000. And in the lower right, a stressless chair made by a Scandinavian designer in the early 70s, and now marketed as stressless chair. Again, that brought about 75% of retail price, even though it was used, which is pretty astounding for auction. You don't always see that, and I think it's a testament to some of what we'll talk about in a little bit about how the gentleman's sale reaches and curated sales can reach a wider audience quicker and a more retail facing one. It's a more retail facing sale in order to take advantage of that. Next, maybe why they are a good idea. As I've sort of alluded to, what we want to do with a curated sale is to aim them at a group of people that we might not be able to harness another way, whether it's through social media efforts or some sort of mailing list selections. Primary goal here is to get new bidders. New bidders are the lifeblood of auction. a new bidder needs to feel comfortable that they are able to ask questions at auction. They have to feel comfortable that they are bidding on something that they understand. There is I will say, auctions have I think there's some notoriety to auction where they sometimes seem unapproachable and intimidating. But the gentleman's sale has succeeded in at least this, in that every sale generates a number of new bidders who never have registered for a Skinner auction before. And in that way, the gentleman's auctions and curated sales in general can and do act as a customer acquisition strategy, which is, of course, of utmost importance to any company, and certainly not the auction business is no exception to that. Another thing we've noticed, and showing some items here that have to do with barware and some whiskey. We've been known to offer whiskey in this sale in the past. The Steuben set of cocktail glasses in the lower right are offered in this upcoming sale, along with a couple of other things in this picture as well, in these pictures as well. What we aim to do here is also have these things reach an audience that they might not otherwise, or at least to make sure that there are multiple, let's say multiple categories of bidders interested in a particular object. So our hope is that people don't see these 12 cocktail glasses as Steuben glassware, but also just as beautiful glassware. So you might appeal to somebody who buys Steuben. You might also appeal to somebody who simply likes the way those would look on their bar or in their bar area. So of course there will be bidders that still care that it's Steuben, but offering the set among other vintage and antique barware means that you get that crossover attention from bidders. And when you have crossover bidding, when you have more bidders, you have a more successful auction. And hopefully the competition goes from somebody who's collecting Steuben barware to somebody who's simply looking for pretty glasses, and doesn't care that they're Steuben, just likes the way they look. How these sales come together from a logistical standpoint is sort of multi-tiered, depends on multiple collaborations between me, between my fellow department heads. In this slide, I sort of show that the broad scope of the esoteric nature of a curated auction can include any one of these things. And in fact, the only thing we haven't sold in a gentleman's sale yet, actually all 5 of these things are in one. The tie in the lower right corner is included in our upcoming sale, available for bidding as of noon today. These are in there because they are esoteric, because they have some, I don't want to say je ne sais quoi, but I will, because it's the only thing I can come up with at the moment. These glass orbs on the turn posts sort of have a scientific look, as do the marbles in the apothecary jar. Gear shift knob from a Volkswagen. Christoffel plates celebrating French bakeries. Again, I've developed this broad look for a curated sale, and I've been fortunate enough to have been given a little bit of free rein to work within that framework, and that has allowed for some unexpected and esoteric inclusions, which again I think is part of the appeal here. A curator has the responsibility to put forth something that represents them, or that what they think of, what they think a curated sale should be, and that freedom keeps the sale loose. It keeps it interesting. It keeps it esoteric and unexpected, and I think it keeps people coming back. Again, those collaborations are with a variety of people. So the 3 things here, these Bertoia chairs, a early 1980s rock guitar, and a duck hunting print by the Massachusetts artist Frank Weston Benson, are 3 examples of objects that might be included in those traditional sales that we've already sort of covered. The Bertoia chairs would go in a 20th century design sale, the rock guitar into a musical instrument sale, and the Benson print into a major paintings and prints department's sale. So it requires those 3 specialist departments to agree with me that the gentleman's sale might be a good opportunity to market the Bertoia chairs or a guitar or a print to a different group of people. As proof of concept, all three of those objects, when they were sold in gentleman's sales, brought just as much, if not more, than they would have within the context of a traditional sale. So that's good for Skinner, that's good for the consignor, and it's good for the future of curated sales, in my opinion. A few years ago, we came up with the idea that maybe it'd be nice to have within the gentleman's sale a guest curator, thereby creating sort of a gift guide within a gift guide. If you see the gentleman's sale as a gift guide for what Skinner can offer and an introductory sale to bring people in to bid at Skinner, the curatorship for the guest curatorships, I should say, for the gentleman's sale gave a little bit more context to, say, 15 or 20 or more things within the gentleman's sale itself. We worked with a couple local celebrities, Jared Bowen, who is a public TV and radio contributor with WGBH and with National Public Radio in Boston, and Jonathan Soroff, who is a well-known local columnist, well-known local. Sorry, Jonathan, if you're out there listening, I'm not. I hope I'm not divulging any secrets. He's a columnist for a paper, a well-known bi-weekly paper, or every other week. Anyway, the Improper Bostonian. He was a columnist for them for years and is well known around Boston. Anyway, we invited them to come in and shape a gentleman's sale in or at least a part of one in their vision. And they've loved those collaborations. They've loved to come in and really sink their teeth into why they like something. In some cases, it gave them something to do that they'd never done before, to explain why they like the things that they might buy, the things that they might surround themselves with. Here we see a Tiffany letter holder in the upper left corner there, a Mexican sterling silver mounted domino set in the circle, and in the lower left, hors d'oeuvres flags in a cased set where you actually can change out the name of what you've got, perhaps for sandwiches, tomato and cheese, crab, egg, ham, and caviar. I think all these were chosen by Jared Bowen, who again was delighted to be able to flex his own sort of mental muscles, figuring out what in a sale he would want to buy, and not only what he would want to buy, but why he would want to buy it. I think their ability to lend us a hand in being able to create new marketing avenues by opening up new ways to market these things to people that knew who Jared Bowen was and who knew Jonathan Soroff, and in this case also John Colasaco, the deputy director of our fine jewelry department, my good friend who I worked with on one of these sales as well. That sort of ability to cross market because Jared and because Jonathan and frankly because John had different people that knew who they were, that were interested in the sale, not because it was a gentleman's sale, not necessarily because it was Skinner, but because they knew, because these people were known beyond Skinner, and to bring those people in again gives us those new marketing avenues and can be useful as promotion and cross promotion. So the gentleman's sale do end up being remarkably diverse. All the items here are in this upcoming version of the gentleman's sale. On the top, there's a Tiffany flask with a set of 6, and one of my favorite things, 6 sterling silver cocktail straws, which I think is pretty fascinating. Some pens from a group of fountain pens that we have coming up, a collection of fountain pens, a British seaboard motor that is meant to strap to a small dinghy or small boat. Perhaps a countertop advertising sign for Bayer Aspirin, one of several Steuben desk sculptures, this one made of crystal 24 karat gold and sterling silver. And then in the lower left corner there, in a small picture, but those are fabric printing blocks, each about, I don't know, the one on the left there is probably about a foot square. So these sales will typically have barware, they'll have desk items, they'll have men's jewelry and watches, sometimes small collections. In the past, we've offered vintage pipes, movie memorabilia, especially lobby cards from movies in the 1930s and 40s, a lot of which had some element of sports in them, so to appeal to a gentleman's sports collector, and cribbage boards. We've noticed that that gaming has tended to do pretty well in this sale too. In the current sale, you'll see, again, I mentioned the group of Steuben desk sculptures and a group of fountain pens. All of this geared towards having somebody browse through the sale, again, quickly and without committing too much time, maybe rebrowse, but always being able to look back and see what else they might be able to find. Where a traditional sale, you might know that you don't like Americana, you don't like early decorative arts. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't like modern art. So you tend not to give those sales a look, and certainly you don't give them a second look. With the gentleman's sale or any curated sale, there's always the wonder, or always the ability to find something that you might have missed the first time through. Everything requires a little bit of a closer look, because it can be unexpected. Our collaboration with the Wilton Historical Society, again, has been developed over years by Katie Banzer-Whittle. Objects of Desire, the gentleman's auction, is the result of an effort for Skinner and for WHS to reach each other's audiences. That's what we're trying to do here. It might bring somebody who is a Wilton Historical Society supporter to Skinner. It might bring a Skinner client to the Wilton Historical Society. And it's all framed within this Objects of Desire rubric that fits perfectly into the annual fundraiser that Wilton Historical Society is doing, and which you all well know about. So our collaboration worked much the same as it has with others, only we got to work with 3 different designers, Phillip Thomas, Prudence Bailey, and Christina Roughan, who reviewed a portion of the sale. I gave them about 30 or 35 lots to look over and pick the things that fit their tastes, and gave them an opportunity to talk about them, why they would use them in design, why they would, how they would incorporate them into the design. And I think we were able to, with these 3 pages here, show what each of them has an idea for, and what they're looking for, thereby also giving all of these objects, which have context on their own, an additional layer of context in order for them to be appreciated by these unexpected things, to be appreciated by an unexpected buyer. That is our aim. That is the aim of any collaboration. It is the aim of any forward-thinking curated sale, and anything anything we try to do tries to bring new buyers in and make people think about old things in new ways. In conclusion, I just sort of want to talk about where we might go from here. I think the possibilities of a curated sale are wide-ranging. They do require, because they operate somewhat out of the general churn that an auction house goes through, where something comes in, it gets cataloged, it gets photographed, and it gets put in a sale. You do need to devote a little bit more patience, a little bit more time, a little bit more creativity, and a clear vision for where you go from there. But I think with those things, with those elements grouped together, I do think there's a way to make curated sales a good alternate strategy for any auction house. You could see sales with themes built from material, again, culled from various departments, and consigners, not the typical single owner collection that so many auction houses do, but perhaps an outdoors sale featuring hunting equipment, or items that you might find in a let's say a bungalow in Santa Fe, that might include early furniture, early Spanish colonial furniture paired with rustic silver, paired with who knows, cast iron chandeliers and lighting and Navajo weavings. You might do something like that. I sort of picture it in my head, and again, this is my creativity running wild as I speak. Somebody's Architectural Digest version of a Santa Fe home might look good in a sale together, provided that we have the material to pull it all together. Or an entire sale curated entirely by a designer rather than just a portion. It's sort of along the same lines, but one designer saying, I think this whole sale could be a house full. That requires a lot of time. It requires a clear vision. It requires a good way to work. It requires a necessarily strict way to work towards that goal, but it can be done. And limitations do exist. We don't have a way to make sure that a designer, if they came to Skinner, has free reign to put anything anywhere. We have major paintings that have to be sold in major painting sales. We sometimes don't have Spanish colonial furniture that might not look good in that Santa Fe house that I was talking about. So we can only sell what's consigned, and there are certain consigners who have consigned expensive things that might not want them in a curated sale. They might want those things marketed directly to that proven mailing list that does best with those things. But again, with some energy, I think curated sales can certainly be an element of Skinner's model going forward. And again, I'm delighted that we've been able to form this partnership with the Wilton Historical Society, and I'm delighted that their partnership has caused my own creativity to expand. So thank you all for listening, and I look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Chris. So I'd like to encourage anybody who's watching at this time to go ahead and submit your questions. And in the meantime, I jotted down a few of my own. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
So I'm curious, you talked a little bit about themes. When you're composing a gentleman's auction, do you begin with kind of an idea, a theme in mind, or have you collected a few items already for the auction and your theme? I realize that, you want to eclectic, you have a little bit of everything, but the idea of a theme running through it, something that keep it in line is perhaps a good idea. So do you have a few items that somebody's consigned and that helps build the theme from there?
Sometimes, yes. I would say that, again, the limitations that I talked about are real. But I do like the idea of giving the sale, whether there's a number of sort of odd Victorian items, or at least giving some focus to some of the sale. We've certainly had sales that have more whiskey in them, or more barware in them, but it's difficult at times to make a 150 lot sale you don't want a small sale to have too much of one thing. So I do tend to, even if there's an opportunity to really fill up the sale with, say modern design, I'll do it, but to a point. I don't want the sale to look like one thing. I want it to look eclectic as much as I can, but there definitely is a balance there. And I'm not saying all of the gentlemen's sales have always looked the same. But funny, in reviewing old gentlemen's sales for this presentation, it became clear to me that at least over the last 5 years, I've sort of thought about the sale the same way, which gave me some solace that I'm doing the same thing. But with regard to themes, it's been hard to really stick to one.
And what about as far as consignments? Do you find that you can you can put something in a gentleman's auction that perhaps would have no other place at auction, value-wise or market-wise,
Yes. And that's actually something that we thought about when we put the sale together, was that that price points were, we sort of would throw the typical Skinner price point out the window if the item warranted it. That is to say, we don't need it to bring a ton of money, as long as we market it to people that might come in and become a new bidder because we offered them something that they want. It's all part of that customer acquisition strategy, that if there are enough things that people might bid on, the chances of having them bid and having them buy make it worth having it not be worth that much money. So there are definitely things, and there were plenty I could go back through and say, well, this wouldn't have had a place in another sale, or this wouldn't have had a place in another sale, either because we don't have a specialty auction that it would do well in, or because it's not quote unquote valuable enough. But yes, that is definitely something we think about. We put things in the gentleman's sale, regardless of what they might bring, if they are right for the sale.
And tell, if you don't mind, just giving a little bit of history as to why gentlemen's auction. What was the impetus specifically for gentlemen's, as opposed to why not glassware, or what drove that specifically as a curated auction?
So I will tell you, it is that our managing director, I mean, you know this, our managing director, Marie Keep, an old colleague of her, Mike Mosier, dreamed the idea up before he left, and I inherited it from him after. And so I can't say I was there for the germination of the idea, but he fashioned it as, cool stuff that might go in, Victorian male's parlor, or a 1990s sports man cave, or any number of things. It wasn't one particular gentleman. It was things that could apply to that would appeal to gentlemen over centuries. And I realized that the gentleman's sale comes off sounding instantly as exclusive to gentlemen. It's not. Half of our bidders are women. It's something that we haven't changed. Perhaps we should. We certainly give all those all the recommendations to come up with a new name for it, Credence. But it is what it is, and perhaps if it weren't the only curated sale we have, it would stick out. It would stick out as the gentleman's sale less. But that's where we go from here. We want more curated sales. I do think there's there should be efforts afoot to make more sales like this one.
It's a bit of a curiosity, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you could call it, there's an auction house out there that has sales every now and then called Curious and Curiouser, which is borrowed, I think, from some Victorian text or something. I'm not sure. Some macabre something or other. It has, glass eyeballs and things like that. There is an element to the gentleman's sale where you could just call it a, items of leisure and curiosity, or something along those lines.
Now forgive me. I was paying attention,
Yeah.
but I don't know if you mentioned, so you hold these sales twice a year.
They are twice a year, yes. We time them around Father's Day and around the holidays. I didn't mention during the presentation, but we do notice a lot of gift giving happens as a result of this sale. There are absolutely people who are shopping for dad, or they're shopping for their husbands, or even shopping for we've had baseball cards and Boston Red Sox signed baseballs. People are just shopping for sports fans. So yeah, twice a year, and time to coincide with historical gift giving seasons.
And now you mentioned maybe, outdoor sales, or, the idea of bringing in more curated sales. I'm curious what, obviously there's a lot more to it than just asking you such a blanketed question, but, what do you think, what would you like to see? Again, knowing that it's not as simple as just saying, it could happen, but what do you think would be kind of a fun curated sale?
Gosh, I mean, really, I think the sky's the limit. But the way I've always sort of pictured a curated sale is I mentioned the term gift guide. I like the idea of just having a sale where it's a ton of things that a group of people collectively like, or 10 things each that the that the department heads at Skinner like, or 100 things that just the jewelry department likes, but no jewelry, or things along those lines. I think there's untapped resources. Skinner is full of people who have creativity. It's full of people who have good fashion sense and style and interior design sense. And to have those people put their heads together and put a sale together, culled from the thousands of objects that Skinner has, can make sense. Again, it requires patience, time, creativity, because it's not just doing what we always do. It's stepping outside the box a little bit. But I think there should be, and there can be, an effort afoot there to do things like that, and to I mentioned the Santa Fe house. That was sort of something off the top of my head, but there's a look there, right? There's a dark sort of oaky carved wood goes well with a Navajo blanket. Why, I don't know, but it does. And big chunky turquoise jewelry goes well with terracotta. Those are just things that are that look good together. And to have a whole sale that just has that is irrespective of time and origin is I think there's possibility there.
Well, I particularly like what you mentioned when you were talking about working with these other curators. And I know this term is probably overused at this point, but the idea of these tastemakers, that people do look outside, Skinner as their resource, and not just Skinner itself, but our own department heads, our own specialists have a following. And I love the idea of partnering with Wilton Historical Society, because the fundraising aspect of it, I thought that was wonderful to bring both of our backgrounds together to help benefit their education programs, but then bringing in Phillip and Prudence and Christina and what they bring to the table because of obviously their expertise in design and their followers, and not only what they could pick, but why they pick those things, as you mentioned, and then how to use those items. I think a lot of people get stuck when they see fun items and they think, oh, that's fun and quirky, and then they just buy it and it kind of rests on a shelf, and that's wonderful. But to have somebody they look up to provide an explanation as to all these different ways they can incorporate it into their own style is, I think, a really inventive way for this collaboration for Skinner and, in this case, for these three designers to.
I agree. I agree to be able to recontextualize these things, not just as there's a set of 12 berry spoons that I think Prudence picked out of the group, and she thought it might be really cool to style them in a glass jar by your coffee machine. And that's the kind of, somebody might just buy 12 berry spoons and stick them in their felt and stick them in a drawer and never look at them again. Having them out and using them, and not only that, but coming up with a really attractive way to use really attractive spoons is the kind of thing that we have to be able to teach people. That's how you get a new bidder. That's how you give somebody inspiration to be able to use something in a way that they didn't think about using that thing. And that was one of the many things that the designers for Objects of Desire said that really stuck in my head, because I thought it was a really good idea, a really creative idea.
Agreed. No, I think it's been really fun for me with all these collaborations, but obviously most recently to just see these items reinvented. And I really appreciate them volunteering to participate in this collaboration.
They have been very giving with their time, and we appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So we don't have any other questions. So I'll just wind it down
There you go.
with one more on that kind of note, which is to say, you don't need to name names, but I'm curious, what would be your dream collaborator? Like either like what kind of setting, you've worked with people in different areas, but what do you think would be kind of a fun person to work with, or people?
So it would have to be somebody who has a great sense of style. And having never had this question asked of me before, I also think it would be great for that person to have a sense of history. They'd have to be unique. They'd have to have a sense of humor. And the person who just occurred to me off the top of my head, so forgive me if this is an answer that I in the future would want to revise, but I think a really cool collaborator would be Quentin Tarantino.
Nice pick.
Because I think he has an appreciation for certainly for the history of film, but also for history, and maybe that's not a politically correct choice, but I like it.
Excellent.
He'd be fun to work with too. I think he seems like a riot.
Well, and we were talking about eclectic and quirky, and I think that those words have probably been used to describe him before. So
no doubt about it.
Well, I want to just say that this probably concludes our evening's event. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for our audience. We're so pleased that you could join us this evening. If you end up having additional questions that we did not address, or questions about buying and selling at auction, you can contact us at info@skinnerinc.com. We would like to thank Wilton Historical Society for partnering in the gentleman's auction. If you would like to donate to their education programs, we will be sending you a follow-up email containing a link to their donation page. And thank you all again. We hope you enjoyed this evening and enjoy the rest of your night.
Before we go,
yes,
the gentleman's sale is currently available for bidding. Take a look. It doesn't take long to look. It doesn't take long to look through it. www.skinnerinc.com. You'll be able to see all 127 lots we have on offer, and perhaps you'll find something for yourself or a loved one.